Star Wars characters as sci-fi alien monsters. This is a video that was actually voted on by people in a really sneaky poll that I only put up in the community post for about 4 hours, and this won by a landslide. And I'm pretty glad it did, because I realized the other day that while I've drawn lots of medieval fantasy monsters, like, you know, a ton of dragons and D&D monsters, I haven't really drawn any alien monsters. I mean, I guess Venom kind of counts, I've done lots of him, but you know what I mean. I wanted to experiment with some sci-fi monster elements, see how those designs would differ from my fantasy monster designs. So in today's episode, I've taken a whole bunch of popular Star Wars characters, largely people who have appeared in the Clone Wars series because that just wrapped up, and of course come up with a bit of lore for what those creatures are like. Cool idea? Not cool idea? Let me know. If you like it, you know, hit the like button. But for now, into the first drawing. Our first creature makes its home in the cave networks of Tatooine. The Dark Vader shares aesthetic traits with the Rancors of Dathomir. These creatures stand full grown at 25 feet tall and feed on anything that wanders into their caves. The Dark Vader are named as such because of their largely dark, tough skin, though they do have extra padded areas around their chest and forearms that is a lighter shade of gray. The only segments of color on their bodies are dark red veins, their slightly red claws, and most prominently, their glowing red eyes. At birth, these creatures are actually quite docile, but as they age, they slowly become more and more aggressive and violent. While these creatures are often slow and lumbering beasts, if you cross them, they can end you in a matter of seconds. Now, I had a lot of fun with this one and all the drawings in this episode, but I knew it was going to be a bit more of a challenge going in, because with my Avengers and Marvel characters as dragons episodes, with all superhero characters basically, I know the lore right off the top of my head, but with Star Wars stuff, well, I know more than your average person. It's not as readily available at the front of my mind. I had to do a bit more research for these, and a lot of the characters that I'm using have similar abilities, because it's not like they all have different superpowers. You know, Sith Lords all have the same abilities, like lightning and force abilities and lightsabers. And speaking of lightsabers, that was something that I battled with a little bit as I was designing these, deciding if I was going to incorporate anything like a lightsaber into the designs. I ended up not doing that and decided to just use some color traits from the lightsaber in this. You know, the red. I wanted to make sure to have a bit of red in there, and I thought it would work really nicely having the eyes be a pop of red, kind of like glowing, almost lightsaber-like eyes. And as you can see, I'm kind of shading this character with red right off the bat. I end up changing that near the end. I mess around with a few different light shades on the character. I was trying to see if I could do this as a mostly red piece, thinking back to my Godzilla episode from the other day, where I was trying to stick to predominantly one color, but it didn't end up working out so well, so I'm glad I ended up changing it to have kind of a green light on the character. I think that contrasts nicely with the slight red elements on the character, and it definitely works out better than what you're seeing here. My favorite part of this one is the face. I think his mouth shape translates nicely from Darth Vader's mouth. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with this as the first creature of the video. A bit more Rancor-like than I should have made it maybe, but I still think it's pretty cool. So I hope you like our Darth Vader beastie. Our next beast is actually a specific member of a species called Dathomir Maulers. The species is commonly found on Dathomir, obviously, but this specific one has been spotted on planets across the galaxy and has the distinctly recognizable feature of its hind cybernetic legs. This creature has left death in its wake wherever it's been seen. Though it's unknown who, someone has clearly taken a wounded Mauler and repaired it to set on likely whoever their enemies are. These creatures are incredibly agile and very difficult to kill. Even with incredibly severe wounds, they can often carry on living. They can be easily spotted from afar due to their bright red shells and their yellow claws, but even spotting them quickly won't often do you much good. They can tear through even the toughest hides with their dual hinged jaws and the large twin claws that jut from each front paw. really, you should just pray that whoever is setting this mauler on people has got no beef with you. Now, Darth Maul is the one that I probably spent the most time on, and I had the most fleshed out idea ahead of time going into it. I knew I wanted to do something with the cybernetic back legs, hence making this a specific member of the species, and I knew there was a lot of cool stuff to work with in the patterns on Darth Maul, and I really like putting the spikes on there. I was actually taking some inspiration from cockroaches, because, you know, cockroaches are thought to be able to survive basically anything, and I like the idea of these creatures being able to survive a lot because of how Darth Maul got, you know, cut in half and then repaired. I also knew that for one of these creatures I wanted to do the kind of dual hinged jaw thing and some weird, like, long, snaky tongues coming out of the mouth. I don't know why I specifically decided to do that with this character. I was just kind of drawing it and I was like, I feel like this will look cool. It's not really specifically a Darth Maul thing, but I'm glad I did it. I think it looks cool and freaky and weird and definitely very alien. I've realized that for a lot of these drawings, I'm taking more inspiration for alien creatures from bugs and insects. I don't really know exactly where that comes from. I mean, I have read a lot of weird science comics, and those tend to have a lot of alien creatures that are pretty bug-like. But of course, there's also part of my mind that's still very much in dragons, so this character, I had a little bit of a drake in mind as I was designing the body, but that's, you know, that doesn't come across too much. I think this really just looks like some kind of freaky alien bug hound, I think. My only complaint is probably that I could have done something more interesting with the cybernetic legs. I think my design for them was a little bit boring, but besides that, I think this thing looks really cool, and I hope you all like him as well. Next we have the amphibious togsnip. Found in the forests of Chile and often staying near water, these creatures are generally herbivorous, but can be very dangerous if provoked. These creatures spend much of their time on land, but can also stay underwater for up to an hour at a time before coming up for air. They're incredibly fast swimmers with a large webbed tail and webbed hind feet that propel them through the water. Along with being agile in water, these creatures can leap great distances and scale the trees around them with ease due to sticky feet and their nimble frames. While they have no opposable thumbs, these creatures can grab and gather food using the two patterned tentacles that form from the tops of their heads. Now this was the one that was trickiest for me, and I probably took the most creative liberties with, because I just don't really know Ahsoka that well. I'm only partway through season 1 of Clone Wars, and I'm really liking it so far, but obviously that means I don't know her super well. She hasn't been in much other stuff that I've watched besides Clone Wars. And I also knew I wanted to do something amphibious with her just because I really wanted to do her head crest things as tentacles. That idea was just stuck with me the whole way through, and I hadn't really done much else amphibious or planned much else amphibious for this video, and I wanted to stay away from bug type designs for this one because I didn't want to have like 3 buggy kind of ones. So I don't know, there was just, as I was looking at her, I felt like aquatic would really work for the character. I don't really know why. There's not much in her species that would lean into that. But luckily there were a lot of visual cues that I could very easily pull from her to make this creature look like her, even if the lore wasn't going to be taking tons of inspiration from her personality traits. I think the head thing is definitely a giveaway that this is her. And then I also did the chameleon kind of eyes, just because, you know, I thought that was cool, and I always think chameleons are a little bit alien looking already. I also messed around with the proportions a bit, made her like long and gangly and skinny, just because, you know, I wanted to play around with more proportions. Although as I'm looking at me drawing it, I can see that I made one of her bicep area arms a lot thicker than the other. Kind of goofed that up, and I don't know why I didn't notice that as I was drawing it. I don't think it ruins the piece, and I, in general, still really happy with how this one came out. So here we go, Ahsoka Tano monster. The last one up is going to be General Grievous, but I guess fair warning that if you've got arachnophobia, you might want to skip this one. I mean, I'm drawing it, so it's going to have, cartoony elements. I don't think it's that freaky, but fair warning, it's a pretty spider-like creature. Let's get into it. If you're anywhere near the cliffs of Kali and hear something akin to an echoing gargled cough, turn and run because you may be close to an encounter with a Kali grief crawler. These creatures are 30-foot-long insect-like beasts that prey on any residents of the Kali homeworld. The light gray shells and claws across their body are tough as steel and work equally well for defense and offense. They have 6 limbs, 2 hind legs predominantly used for walking, 2 large front claws, and then a second set of slightly smaller arms that, when they're at rest, can be concealed and tucked away under their larger arms. The aforementioned coughing sound they emit is a form of sonar detection that echoes through the mountains, and they use it to locate their prey. These creatures are fast and violent and, not to mention, pretty unpleasant to look at. Best to keep your distance. Now, admittedly, this is actually my second crack at this drawing. I did an earlier one, but I was a bit distracted. The design didn't turn out great, and I was like, I like the ideas of it. It's similar to this, but I was just like, I gotta do this again. And something I'm noticing with how this drawing turned out and some of the others is I didn't think enough about the home worlds of the specific creatures. Like, the environment that I end up putting into this doesn't really look that much like Kali, and like with the Dothamirian Mauler character, the Darth Maul one, I probably should have made that one look more like it was on Darth Maul's homeworld, even though it was a creature that was being taken off and sent to different planets. It would have worked better if I did that. That's something that I'll make sure to think through more the next time I do a Star Wars episode on the actual alien worlds in Star Wars. Ignoring that, though, I really like how this one turns out. It's definitely a lot creepier than most of the stuff I draw. I really wanted to do some big exposed gums, just because I think that's a really creepy element a lot of the time, and with his, whatever those are on Grievous, his ear things, I knew I wanted to do something ear-like and almost made them look a bit like bat wings to lean into that sonar idea. I think that turned out pretty cool. I kind of gave him a little bit of a bug pattern in his eyes, but it's pretty not noticeable in the finished rendered version because I lightened that up a bunch. Also, you've probably noticed, as I had an image of it on screen, I was taking inspiration from the Acklay, the species of crab-like bug monsters that was in Attack of the Clones. And also, I think this thing ends up looking a little bit like that Pennywise monster from the end of It 2. Bug-like, freaky, creepy monster. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I'm really glad I ended up adding in the splashes of green and blue on this character, kind of inspired by the lightsabers that Grievous has. I think that was a good final touch and makes it stand out nicely from a desaturated background, besides the blue sky and behind it. So last creature of the video, probably the freakiest one. I hope you all like the Grief Crawler. Alright. These are indeed a bit freaky looking, and I'm definitely feeling it. What do you think? More sci-fi monsters? More Star Wars characters as monsters? Back to medieval fantasy monsters? Let me know, give me ideas in the comment section. And of course, if you're new here, check out some of my other monster videos, or Star Wars videos, or whatever. I've done lots of superheroes as dragons, done Ben 10 aliens if they were D&D monsters, I've put Spider-Man characters into the Star Wars universe. That's probably the next best video to check out after this one. But who knows, go to whatever you want. And make sure to subscribe and ring the bell if you enjoyed this. Also, here's another batch of the awesome art that people have sent in for their Art Battle PopCross submissions. So many cool superhero teams coming in on the Discord and on Instagram. I'll probably show one more batch of submissions next week, but I'll also keeping tags on the Art Battle PopCross hashtag on Instagram to see if any more awesome superhero teams come in after that. But that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.